The alarm screamed through every corridor of the colony ship New Dawn. Captain Deho ran toward the engine room, his heart pounding hard against his chest. Red emergency lights flashed everywhere, painting the metal walls in blood-colored shadows. "Report," he shouted into his communicator. "Main engine is dead, sir," came the voice of Hyunwoo, the young engineer. His voice shook with fear. "Secondary engine just failed too. We're drifting." Daiho felt ice spread through his veins. They were between stars in the deepest part of empty space. No planets nearby. No rescue ships could reach them in time. 50,000 people slept in the cryopods below, dreaming of their new home. They would never wake up. He reached the bridge and found Mirai, his chief navigator, staring at her screens with wide eyes. Her hands moved fast across the controls, but Deho could see the truth in her face. There was nothing she could do. "How long?" he asked quietly. Mirai turned to him. Tears ran down her face. "Life support will last maybe 3 weeks, then—" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Deho sat down in his captain's chair. It felt heavier than ever before. He had promised these people a new world. He had promised their families they would be safe. Now he would break that promise. "Send out a distress signal," he ordered. "All frequencies. Maybe someone will hear it." "Sir, we're too far from everything," Mirai said softly. "No one comes here. That's why we chose this route. Send it anyway." For 6 days they sent the signal. For 6 days nothing answered. Daiho walked through the ship, looking at the cryopods. Inside each one, a person slept peacefully. They had no idea death was coming. Maybe that was a kindness. Hyunwoo tried everything to fix the engines. The young man didn't sleep, didn't eat. His fingers bled from working with broken metal and hot wires. But some things couldn't be fixed, no matter how hard you tried. On the 7th day, something answered. "Captain," Mirai shouted. "There's a ship." "A ship is coming!" Deho rushed to the bridge. On the screen, he saw a vessel unlike anything in human records. It was huge, maybe 10 times the size of the New Dawn. Its shape was strange, all curves and spirals like a seashell made of silver metal. "Are they responding to our signal?" Deho asked. "Yes, sir. They're sending a message now." The screen filled with an alien face. Deho had never seen a living alien before. No human had. The face was long and narrow, with 4 eyes that glowed like soft amber. The skin looked like it was made of tiny scales that shifted colors from blue to green to purple. "We heard your cry for help," the alien said. The translation came through clearly. "We are the Velthir. Your engines are broken. Your people will die. This is correct?" Deho stood straight. "Yes, we have 50,000 souls on this ship. We can't save them." The alien's eyes seemed to grow sad. "All life is sacred." "We will help you." "Why?" Deho asked. The word came out before he could stop it. "You don't know us. We have nothing to give you." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. "We do not help because we expect payment. We help because it is right. Please allow us to dock with your ship." The Velthir ship moved close to the New Dawn. Deho watched as alien engineers came aboard. They were tall and thin, moving with a strange grace. They carried tools that looked more like works of art than machines. Hyunwoo worked beside them. At first, he couldn't understand their technology. It was far beyond anything humans had built. But the Velthir were patient teachers. They showed him how their tools worked, how their engines ran on principles humans hadn't discovered yet. "Your people are young in the stars," one Velthir engineer told Hyunwoo. "But you learn fast." "That is good. You will need to learn fast." It took 3 days to repair the engines. The Velthir didn't just fix what was broken. They improved the design, made it stronger, better. They filled the New Dawn's fuel tanks from their own reserves. They gave medical supplies, food, and water. On the 3rd night, Deho met with the Velthir leader in his ready room. The alien's name was Thesisira, an elder of her people. She moved slowly like every step hurt her. "You've given us so much," Deho said. "Please tell us how we can repay you." Thesira's 4 eyes looked at him with something like sadness. "We are the last of our kind," she said. "Our son died. Our worlds burned. This ship carries the last 3,000 Velthir in all the universe. We search for a new home, but we are old and tired. We do not know if we will find it." Deho felt his throat go tight. "Then let us help you. We can share our colony world. There's room for everyone." "No," Thesisira said gently. "Your world is not right for us. The air, the gravity, the light from your star. We would die there as surely as in space. We must find our own place, but thank you for offering." It shows the goodness in your hearts. She handed Deho a small crystal device. These are coordinates. 3 systems that might be good for your people. We have explored them long ago. Choose wisely and your colony will thrive. But what about you? Deho asked. Where will you go? We will keep searching. Perhaps we will find our new home. Perhaps we will not. But we will die knowing we did one last good thing. We saved 50,000 lives. That is a good legacy for the Velthir. Before the Velthir left, Thessisira placed one long hand on Deho's shoulder. Perhaps one day, when your people are strong, you will remember us. Not because you must, but because you choose to. That would honor us more than any payment. Deho watched the Velthir ship disappear into the darkness of space. He stood there for a long time, holding the crystal with the coordinates. Then he went to the ship's archive room and made a record. He typed slowly, making sure every word was right. Year 2176. The human colony ship New Dawn was saved by the Velthir people. They gave us life when they had every reason to save only themselves. This debt is recorded and will never be forgotten. One day, humanity will repay this kindness. This is sworn by Captain Deho of Earth. He saved the file and locked it in the permanent records. His hand shook as he did it. He didn't know if humanity would ever see the Velthir again. He didn't know if his people would even remember this moment in the years to come. But he had made a promise. And promises mattered. 847 years later, in a research station far from Earth, an archaeologist named Jiwan would find that promise. She would hold it in her hands and realize that some debts never die. They just wait, patient and silent, until the time comes to be paid. But that moment was still centuries away. For now, the New Dawn flew toward its new home, carrying 50,000 dreamers and one sacred obligation that would one day shake the entire galaxy. The council chamber on Nexus Station was enormous. 47 different species sat in a great circle, each in their own special seats made for their unique bodies. Some breathed different air, sealed behind force fields. Some needed different gravity and floated in their own bubbles. But all of them were here to make decisions for the galaxy. Ambassador Taijin stood in the center of the circle. He was a small human among giants and strange beings that looked like nothing from Earth. His formal suit felt too tight. His mouth was dry, but he stood straight and tall. Honored representatives, he began. His voice echoed in the huge space. I come before you with an urgent request. We have received a distress signal from the Velthir people. A ripple of sound went through the chamber. Some species whispered to each other. Others made noises Taijin couldn't understand. One representative, a being made of what looked like living crystal, spoke up. The Velthir are extinct, it said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. They disappeared 800 years ago. Everyone knows this. They're not extinct, Taijin replied. He pressed a button on his datapad. The distress signal played for everyone to hear. It was weak and broken, full of static, but the words were clear enough. We are the last Velthir. Our ship is dying. We remembered you, humans. Please remember us. These are our coordinates. Please, we remembered you. Taijin felt emotion rise in his throat. He pushed it down. The Velthir saved 50,000 human lives when we were helpless in space. They gave us everything and asked for nothing. Now they're asking for help. We must answer them. A large being that looked like a bear made of smoke leaned forward. Where are these coordinates? Taijin showed them on the main screen. A map of the galaxy appeared, with a red dot blinking in one sector. The chamber went very quiet. That's in Drathani space, someone said. The Forbidden Territories. Yes, Taijin admitted. But the Velthir, are you insane? A representative that looked like a walking plant cut him off. The Drathani Empire has declared that entire region off limits. Any ship that enters will be destroyed. No questions, no warnings. Just death. We're not asking for war, Taijin said quickly. Just a rescue mission. In and out. We save 3,000 lives and leave. The crystal being made a sound like breaking glass. That was laughter, Taijin had learned. 3,000 lives. And you want to risk war with the Drathani for that? The Drathani have the most powerful military in the galaxy. If we anger them, billions could die. All life is sacred, Taijin said, using the same words the Velthir had spoken so long ago. Isn't that what the Concordate stands for? We protect all life, no matter the cost. The bear smoke being shook its massive head. We protect life when it's practical, when it makes sense. This doesn't make sense. 3,000 against billions? The math is simple, human. Taijin looked around the circle. He saw it in their faces, in their body language, in the way they wouldn't meet his eyes. They had already decided. The head of the council stood up. She was from the Kelris species, tall and elegant with silver skin. Ambassador Tajin, we understand your emotional connection to this situation. But the Concordat must think of the greater good. We cannot risk war for so few. The request is denied. You mean you won't help them? Tajin said. His voice came out hard and cold. We mean we cannot. The risk is too great. The council has spoken. Tajin stood there for a moment. He thought about Deho, about the Sasira, about promises made in the dark of space. Then he bowed his head. I understand. Thank you for your time. He walked out of the chamber. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Behind him, he heard the council move on to other business. Just like that, 3,000 lives became a closed matter. Tajin went straight to his ship and sent a message to Earth. Then he waited. 2 days later, he sat in a conference room on Earth. Admiral Soman was there, along with the human government leaders and military commanders. Intelligence officer Kyungmin stood at the front, showing them data on large screens. The Drithani Empire controls 1/3 of the galaxy, Kyungmin explained. They have over 2,000 warships just in the sector where the Velthir are located. We have 230 ships in our entire fleet. What are our chances? Asked the Prime Minister. Kyungmin didn't hesitate. 0. Mathematically, we cannot win a direct fight with the Drithani. The room went silent. Tajin looked at their faces. They all knew what this meant. To save the Velthir would mean fighting an impossible battle. It would mean death for thousands of humans. It might even mean the end of humanity itself. Admiral Soman stood up. She was old, with gray hair and scars on her face from battles long ago. I have a question, she said. Does anyone here dispute that we owe the Velthir our existence? No one spoke. Does anyone here believe we should ignore a debt just because paying it is dangerous? Still silence, then we go get them, Soman said simply. We pay what we owe. That's what humans do. Admiral, the Prime Minister said carefully, the Concordat will not support us. If we do this, we do it alone, and we might not survive. Soman looked at him with eyes like iron. Would you be able to sleep at night, knowing we let them die because we were afraid? Knowing we had the power to help and chose not to? I couldn't, I won't. Tajin felt something grow in his chest. Pride maybe, or hope. He stood up too. The Velthir didn't calculate odds when they saved us. They didn't ask if it was safe or practical. They just did what was right. The Prime Minister looked around the room. He saw agreement in every face. Slowly he nodded. Very well. We go to war. The next day, Tajin returned to the Concordat Council. This time he didn't ask for anything. He simply made an announcement. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Concordat, effective immediately. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted and demanded explanations. The Kelris leader held up her hand for silence. Ambassador, you cannot simply leave the Concordat. There are procedures, agreements, treaties, which you violated when you refused to honor the very principles you claim to hold sacred, Tajin said. His voice was calm but hard as stone. You say all life is sacred, but only when it's convenient. You say you protect the weak, but only when it doesn't cost you anything. We're done pretending those words mean something to you. Where are you going? Someone asked. To pay our debts. We're going into Drithani space to rescue the Velthir, alone if we must. The crystal being made that breaking glass laugh again. You'll all die. Your entire species will be destroyed. For what? For 3,000 aliens you've never even met? Tajin turned to look at the being. Yes, because unlike you, we understand what honor actually means. He walked out of the chamber for the last time. Behind him, the council erupted into chaos. Some thought humans were noble fools. Others thought they were dangerously insane. But all of them watched as humanity began to mobilize for war. Admiral Soman gave the order. Every human ship was called home. Every colony was put on alert. The entire military machine of humanity began to move with one single purpose. News spread across the galaxy fast. Humans were going to war with the Drithani Empire for 3,000 lives. The galaxy watched with a mixture of confusion, amusement, and growing concern. In a command center on Earth, Soman looked at the star map. The Drithani fleet was massive, overwhelming, impossible to defeat. But she didn't care about possible or impossible. She cared about right and wrong. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. We leave in 1 week. Officers rushed to follow her commands. Plans were made. Weapons were loaded. Ships were fueled and ready. Humanity was going to war and nothing would stop them. The Drethany sent a message. It was simple and direct. Turn back or be destroyed. Humanity's response was even simpler. You're in our way. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to understand that humanity wasn't just another species. They were something different, something that scared even the mighty Drethani. Because humanity didn't fight for territory or resources or power. Humanity fought for promises, and there was nothing more dangerous in all the universe than someone who kept their word, no matter what it cost. Fleet Commander Junho stood in the war room, looking at screens that showed every human ship in the galaxy. 230 ships. That was all they had. Against the Drethani's 2,000, it seemed like nothing, but Junho smiled. Activate Protocol Icarus, he ordered. Around him, officers looked at each other with wide eyes. Protocol Icarus was a secret plan, something humanity had developed centuries ago. Most people didn't even know it existed. It was a plan for fighting when you couldn't win. A plan for war against impossible odds. All across human space, hidden doors opened. On colony worlds under the surface of moons and asteroid fields that looked empty, shipyards came to life. They had been built in secret, waiting for this exact moment, waiting for the day humanity would need every ship it could build. Sir, the hidden yards are responding, an officer reported. They're already building. They can give us 50 more ships in 3 days. Not enough, Junho said. Activate the civilian conversion program. That made everyone stop. Converting civilian ships meant taking cargo vessels, passenger liners, even mining ships, and turning them into warships. It was desperate. It was dangerous. But it was necessary. On the colony world of New Terra, a young woman named Yunji stood in a massive weapons lab. She was the chief weapons engineer for the human fleet. Around her, scientists and engineers worked on devices that looked like they belonged in nightmares. Are they ready? Junho's voice came through her communicator. Yunji looked at the weapons. They were things humanity had invented but never used, things they had kept secret from the Concordat because other species would call them cruel or unfair. Quantum displacement drives that could make ships appear and disappear. Singularity torpedoes that could rip holes in space itself. Neural-linked fighter swarms where one pilot could control 100 ships with their mind. They're ready, Yunji said. But Commander, if we use these, the galaxy will know we've been hiding our true capabilities. Let them know, Junho replied. We're done hiding. In a strategy room on Mars, Minjae spread out battle plans across a holographic table. He was humanity's top strategic mind, the man who planned for every possible war scenario. But he wasn't planning how to fight fair. He was planning how to win ugly. We don't fight their way, he explained to the assembled commanders. Every other species in the galaxy fights wars like it's a sport. Rules, honor, fair battles. We're not going to do that. What are we going to do? Someone asked. Minji showed them the plans. Hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, using the environment as a weapon, fighting in ways that would make the enemy scared, confused, angry, making them make mistakes. The Drethani have more ships, better shields, stronger weapons, Minjae said. But they've never fought someone who refuses to play by their rules. That's our advantage. On a training station near Jupiter, Marine Commander Dongwu watched his soldiers practice, but they weren't practicing normal combat. They were training for something the galaxy had never seen. Again, Dongwu shouted. You're too slow. Marines in powered armor ran through a simulation. They practiced boarding enemy ships, fighting in zero gravity, surviving in vacuum without suits for short periods. They trained with weapons designed to work in environments that would kill most species. An alien observer from the Concordat watched in horror. This is madness, he said. You train your soldiers to fight in conditions that would kill them. Why? Dongwu looked at the alien with cold eyes. Because when you fight us, you'll learn that humans don't need perfect conditions to win. We just need to want it more than you do. In the pilot training center, Heian strapped into her fighter cockpit. She was the best pilot humanity had ever produced, with reflexes and instincts that seemed impossible. Her call sign was Reaper, and everyone knew why. Run Scenario Omega-7, she said to the computer. The simulation started. Enemy ships appeared from all directions, hundreds of them. The G-forces required to dodge them would crush most aliens. Their bodies couldn't handle the acceleration. But Heian could. She had trained her entire life for this. She flew through the simulation like she was dancing, Her fighter twisted and turned in ways that looked more like magic than physics. Every move would have killed a weaker pilot. But Heian didn't just survive. She won. When the simulation ended, every enemy ship was destroyed. Heian had taken no damage. "Upload that pattern to all pilots," she ordered. "If I can do it, they can learn it." All across human space, the war machine grew. Ships that looked like cargo vessels were fitted with hidden weapons. Mines were loaded with explosives that used physics other species hadn't mastered. Soldiers trained for battles in ways the galaxy considered uncivilized. But the most terrifying preparation was the simplest. Humanity was preparing to fight total war, not for conquest, not for resources, but for a promise. Admiral Samin visited each preparation site. She watched the weapons being built, the soldiers training, the ships being armed, and everywhere she went, she asked the same question. "Do you understand why we're doing this?" And everywhere the answer was the same. "To keep our promise, Admiral. To show the galaxy what honor really means." The Drethani Empire watched these preparations with growing alarm. Their spies reported things that seemed impossible. Humans training for suicide missions. Humans building weapons that would be considered war crimes by Concordat law. Humans preparing to fight a war they could not win. The Drethani sent their best admiral to meet with Soman. His name was unpronounceable by human tongues, but he came in peace under a white flag. "You cannot win this war," he told Soman. They met on neutral ground, just the two of them. "We have studied your fleet, your numbers, your technology. You will all die." Soman looked at him calmly. "Probably. Then why fight? What are 3,000 Velter worth to you? They are nothing. Strangers. Aliens you've never met." "They saved us when we were nothing," Soman said. "They gave us life when they could have ignored us. We owe them a debt, and we always pay our debts." The Drethani admiral studied her face. "You truly mean this? You would sacrifice everything for this? This obligation?" "Yes." He was quiet for a long moment. "You are either the most honorable species I've ever met or the most insane." "Maybe both," Soman replied. The admiral left. He reported back to the Drethani High Command. And for the first time in their long history, the Drethani felt something like fear. Because they understood now. Humanity wasn't bluffing. Humanity wasn't going to back down. Humanity was coming and nothing would stop them. The final week before departure arrived. In the human fleet, every ship was ready. Every weapon was loaded. Every soldier knew their mission. They also knew most of them would not come home. Junho gathered all the ship captains for one last meeting. They appeared on screens from all over human space. Hundreds of faces all looking at him. "You know the odds," he said. "You know we're probably going to die. If anyone wants to back out, do it now, no shame. No judgment." Not a single captain moved. "Why?" Junho asked. "Why are you willing to die for this?" A captain from the destroyer Braveheart spoke up. "Because if we don't, who will? If we let debts go unpaid, what are we? Just another species that talks about honor but doesn't live it." Another captain added, "My grandmother was on the New Dawn. If the Velther hadn't saved that ship, I wouldn't exist. None of my family would exist. I owe them my life. This is how I pay it back." More voices joined in. Some had personal connections to the New Dawn. Others just believed in doing the right thing, but all of them were ready to die for it. Junho felt pride swell in his chest. This was humanity, not perfect, not always wise, but loyal to the end. "Then we go to war," he said, "and we show the galaxy what it really means to keep a promise." The fleet assembled near Earth. 230 ships became 280 with the secret yards. Then 320 as civilian ships joined them, armed and ready to fight. Yunji uploaded the final weapon systems. Minjae distributed the battle plans. Dongwu's Marines boarded the assault ships. Heiyun and her fighter squadrons ran last-minute checks. Admiral Soman stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable. She looked at the fleet gathered around her. It was still so small compared to what waited for them. But size didn't matter. "Not anymore, all ships," she broadcast. "We go to pay a debt 847 years old. The galaxy says we're fools. Let them think that. We know the truth. We know that some things matter more than survival. Some things are worth dying for." She paused, looking at the stars ahead. "The Velthir saved us when we were helpless. Today we return that gift. Today we show the universe that humanity keeps its promises, no matter the cost, no matter the odds." We are going into hell itself, and we're coming out with our friends. 320 ships turned as one. Their engines blazed to life, burning bright against the darkness. All ships jump on my mark, Soman ordered. 3, 2, 1, mark. The fleet vanished in flashes of light, leaving Earth behind. They jumped toward Drithani space, toward impossible odds, toward a debt that needed to be paid. The galaxy watched and waited. Some in fear, some in awe, all wondering the same thing. Would humanity survive? Or would this be the end of the species that dared to value honor over survival? Soon they would have their answer. The human fleet dropped out of jump space at the edge of the Ashara Nebula. Admiral Soman looked at her screens and saw exactly what intelligence had predicted. 2,000 Drithani warships waiting in formation. They had known humanity was coming. They're not even hiding, said her second officer. They want us to see how outmatched we are. Soman smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then let's show them that numbers don't mean everything. Signal the fleet. Execute Plan Reaper. The human ships scattered like seeds in the wind. They didn't charge at the enemy like the Drithani expected. Instead, they dove into the nebula itself, disappearing into the clouds of gas and dust that filled this region of space. The Drithani admiral watched in confusion. What are they doing? They're hiding in the nebula. That's suicide. Their sensors won't work in there. They'll be blind. But humanity had planned for this. While Drithani sensors couldn't see through the dense nebula, human ships had been fitted with new scanning systems that used the nebula itself to track enemy ships. The gas and dust that blinded the Drithani became eyes for humanity. Hayan led her fighter squadron through the nebula like ghosts. Her neural link connected her to 100 fighters at once. She could feel them all, control them all, as if they were extensions of her own body. Target the outer ships first, she ordered. Hit them and disappear. The fighters struck. They appeared from the nebula clouds, fired their weapons, and vanished again before the Drithani could respond. Enemy ships exploded, confused about where the attacks came from. This is impossible, a Drithani captain screamed. How are they seeing us? They couldn't understand. The Drithani fought wars in open space where everything was visible and fair. They had never faced an enemy that used the environment itself as a weapon. Admiral Soman watched the battle unfold from her flagship. The Indomitable was deep in the nebula, coordinating the attack. On her screens, she saw human ships darting in and out like sharks in dark water. Their formation is breaking, her tactical officer reported. They're getting frustrated. Good, Somin said. Frustrated enemies make mistakes. Commence Phase 2. Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting on all Drithani frequencies. But they weren't making threats or demands. They were explaining. We don't want to fight you, the broadcast said. We're here for the Velthir. Let us pass and no one else has to die. The Drithani admiral listened to this message and felt something strange. These humans sounded almost sad, like they regretted having to fight. But that couldn't be right. No one regretted war. War was about power and dominance. They're trying to confuse us, he told his officers. Ignore their words. Find them and destroy them. But the message had an effect. Some Drithani captains hesitated. They wondered why humans would come all this way, risk everything just to save another species. It didn't make sense. Captain Wanshik commanded the human dreadnought Indomitable's sister ship, the Relentless. His ship was one of the largest in the human fleet, and he pushed it hard into the thickest fighting. Sir, we're taking heavy fire, his weapons officer reported. Shields at 60%. Return fire, Wanshik ordered calmly. Target their command ship. The Relentless fired its main cannon. But instead of regular weapons, it launched one of Yunji's special creations, a singularity torpedo. The weapon tore through space itself, creating a tiny black hole that lasted only seconds. But those seconds were enough. The Drithani command ship's shields collapsed. Its hull buckled and tore. The ship didn't explode. It simply stopped existing in several places at once. The Drithani fleet recoiled in shock. What kind of weapon was that? Again, Wanshik ordered. Show them we're serious, but the Drithani were learning. They focused their fire on the Relentless. Hundreds of energy beams hit the ship at once. Shields failed. Armor melted. Explosions ripped through deck after deck. Sir, we have to retreat, someone shouted. No, Wanshik said. We're too close. Load the last singularity torpedo. Manual targeting. Sir, that's impossible. Our systems are failing. Then we do it by hand. In the bowels of the dying ship, engineering crews manually loaded the massive torpedo. They worked in smoke and fire, with alarms screaming and the ship shaking itself apart around them. But they got it done. Wanshik aimed the Relentless directly at the Drithani flagship. His ship was barely functioning. Life support was gone and half his crew was dead. But he had one shot left for the Velthir, he whispered. For the promise. The torpedo launched at point-blank range. The Drithani flagship tried to turn, tried to escape, but it was too close. The singularity opened up right next to it, and the massive warship was pulled apart like paper in a storm. The Relentless exploded seconds later. Wanshik and his entire crew were gone, but they had taken the enemy flagship with them. Admiral Soman watched her friend's ship die on her screens. She felt the loss like a knife in her heart, but she couldn't stop. Not now, all ships push forward, she ordered. They're breaking. Don't let them regroup. Marine Commander Dongwu led the boarding parties. His ships were small, fast vessels designed to attach to enemy ships like parasites. When the Drithani ships were damaged and vulnerable, that's when Dongwu struck. Breach, he shouted, and his Marines cut through the hull of a Drithani cruiser. The Drithani inside were shocked. Humans were boarding them? In the middle of battle? That was insane, but Dongwu's Marines were prepared for this. They fought in the vacuum of the breached ship without suits, using magnetic boots and pure determination. They moved through the ship like a force of nature, disabling systems and spreading fear. The Drithani had never fought an enemy like this. An enemy that seemed to ignore pain, ignore death, ignore all the normal rules of warfare. What are they? A Drithani soldier screamed before Dongwu's team knocked him unconscious. We're humans, Dongwu replied, even though no one could hear him in the vacuum. And we keep our promises. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships fought with a desperation that terrified the Drithani. They weren't fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for something the Drithani couldn't understand. Obligation. Heon's fighters had been reduced from 100 to 30. But those 30 fought like they were possessed. She led them in one final strike at the Drithani battle line. This is Reaper to all fighters, she broadcast. One more push. For everyone who's already fallen. For everyone we're here to save. The fighters dove in. They didn't try to dodge anymore. They just attacked with everything they had. Heian felt her connection to each pilot, felt their determination, their courage, their fear. One by one, the fighters were destroyed. But each one took an enemy ship with them. By the time Heian was the last one left, she had opened a hole in the Drithani line. Admiral, she transmitted to Soman. The path is clear. Get to the Velthir! Heian, get out of there! Soman ordered. Can't, Admiral. My ship's too damaged, but I can hold this gap open for 3 minutes. That should be enough. Heian's fighter spun and fired at anything that tried to close the gap. She was hit again and again, but she kept fighting. Her ship was on fire. Her controls barely worked. But she held the line. 2 minutes, she counted down calmly. 90 seconds. 1 minute, at 30 seconds, her ship finally gave out. The engines exploded and Heian's fighter became a fireball in space. But she had done it. The gap stayed open. Through that gap, Captain Yuna pushed her rescue ship, the Sanctuary. It was a medical vessel not meant for combat. But it was fast and it could hold a lot of people. She saw the Velthir arc ahead, ancient and failing. It looked like it might fall apart at any moment. This is Sanctuary to Velthir vessel, Yuna broadcast. We're here to get you out. Please prepare for evacuation. The response came back weak and full of static. Why? We are not worth this. So many of you have died. Yuna felt tears on her face. You were worth it 847 years ago. That hasn't changed. Now please let us save you. The evacuation began. 3,000 Velthir, the last of their species, transferred to the Sanctuary. They moved slowly, their bodies weak from the long voyage. Some of them looked at the burning battlefield around them with horror. All this death, one Velthir elder said. For us? For honor, Yuna replied. For keeping promises. For showing that some debts can never be forgotten. Admiral Somin ordered the fleet to cover the Sanctuary's escape. What remained of the human fleet, barely 140 ships now, formed a wall between the Velthir and the enemy. The Drithani could have pressed the attack. They still had superior numbers, but something had changed. The Drithani admiral looked at the battlefield, at the burning human ships, at the crews that had fought and died for strangers. Ceasefire, he ordered quietly. Sir? His officers asked in shock. Ceasefire, he shouted. Let them go. They've earned it. The Drithani fleet stopped shooting. They watched as the human fleet, battered and broken, began to withdraw. The sanctuary carrying the last Velthir disappeared into jump space, heading for safety. Someone looked at what remained of her fleet. 140 ships out of 320. Thousands of crew members dead. Friends, colleagues, people she had served with for years. All gone. But the Velthir were safe. All ships, and she broadcast. "We're going home. We did what we came to do." The human fleet jumped away, leaving the Drithani alone in the nebula. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Ashura Nebula. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. Ambassador Taejian walked into the Concordat Council chambers once again. But this time things were different. The representatives didn't look at him with dismissal or amusement. They looked at him with something like fear. "Ambassador Taejian," the Kelris leader said carefully, "welcome back to the council. We are pleased to see you." Taejian noticed she didn't sit in her elevated position anymore. She stood on the same level as him. Equal, that was new. "Thank you," Taejian said. He didn't smile. "I'm here to inform you of humanity's plans going forward." All around the circle, representatives leaned in to listen. The crystal being, who had laughed at humanity's mission, stayed very quiet now. "The Velthir have been successfully relocated to a world in human space," Taejian continued. "They are safe, healthy, and beginning to rebuild their civilization. We consider this matter closed." "We're glad to hear it," someone said. "And we wanted to say—" "I'm not finished," Taejian interrupted. The representative fell silent immediately. "Humanity is proposing changes to the Concordat Charter. We believe the mutual defense obligations need to be clearer. When a member species asks for help, it should not be optional based on political convenience." The chamber erupted in whispers. "Change the charter? That hadn't been done in 500 years. "What exactly are you proposing?" the Kelris leader asked. "Simple," Taejian replied. "If a member species is in danger, all members respond. Not with debate. Not with calculations about worth and cost. They respond because it's right. Because that's what the Concordat is supposed to mean. The bear smoke being spoke up, sounding defensive. But what about practical concerns? What about situations where helping one species endangers many others?" "Then you figure it out," Taejian said sharply. "You're supposed to be the advanced, civilized species of the galaxy. Surely you can solve problems without abandoning those who need help." Admiral Soman entered the chamber then. She had been invited to speak. The representative stared at her. She looked different from 6 months ago. Her right arm was gone, replaced with a mechanical one. Scars covered the visible parts of her skin. She moved like every step hurt, but her eyes were clear and hard as steel. "I want to show you something," Somin said. She activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed footage from the battle. The council watched in silence as human ships burned. They saw One Sheik's Relentless make its final attack. They saw Heiyun's fighters sacrifice themselves one by one. They saw Marines fighting in conditions that should have killed them. They saw thousands of humans die. "This is what honor costs," Soman said quietly. "This is what keeping promises looks like. We lost 180 ships. 90,000 crew members are dead. Good people. People with families, with dreams, with lives ahead of them." She paused, letting that sink in. "But we saved 3,000 Velthir, and we proved something to ourselves and to you. We proved that we meant what we said. That humanity's word actually means something." The crystal being finally spoke. "You were fools. You could have all died. Your entire species could have been wiped out." Soman turned to look at it directly. "Yes, we could have. But we didn't, and do you know why?" "Silence, because we held back," Somin said. Each word dropped like a stone. "The weapons we used in that battle were restrained. We have weapons we didn't deploy, ships we didn't send, strategies we didn't use. Because we weren't trying to destroy the Drithani. We were trying to get past them." She activated another display. This one showed projections, battle simulations, industrial capacity reports. The numbers were terrifying. If we had committed to total war, to destroying the Drithani instead of just getting through them, the casualties would have been catastrophic, for them and for us. But we could have done it. We have the capacity. We just chose not to. The chamber went very still. The representatives looked at the numbers with growing horror. Humanity had been holding back. All this destruction, all this death, and they had been restraining themselves. "What are you saying?" the Kelris leader asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm saying that humanity fought a limited war to save 3,000 lives," Soman replied. We accepted terrible losses to minimize enemy casualties. We could have made different choices, deadlier choices. She looked around the circle at each representative. So here's the question you should be asking yourselves. If we were willing to sacrifice that much to save 3,000 strangers, what would we do to protect 3 billion humans? What would we do to protect allies who actually kept their promises to us? The implications hung in the air like poison. Humanity had just shown they could fight the Drethani to a standstill while holding back. What could they do if they truly unleashed everything they had? A new voice spoke up. It came from the entrance to the chamber. The Drethani ambassador was there requesting permission to speak. The council had never seen a Drethani ambassador before. The Drethani didn't participate in the Concordat. They were too powerful, too proud. But here one stood asking politely to address the council. Speak, the Kelris leader said, clearly shocked. The Drethani ambassador was tall and covered in scales that shifted colors. He looked imposing, but his voice was measured and careful. I bring a message from the Drethani Empire, he said. We have analyzed the Battle of Ashara Nebula in detail. Every ship movement, every weapon deployment, every tactical decision. He paused, looking uncomfortable. Our conclusion is simple. Humanity could have won that battle if they had been willing to pay the full price. They could have destroyed our fleet. Instead, they fought to minimize all casualties, including ours. They treated their enemies with more care than we have ever shown our allies. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Drethani Empire wishes to open diplomatic relations with humanity, the ambassador continued. We wish to understand this species that values honor over victory, and we wish to ensure we never fight them again, not because we fear defeat, but because we fear what it means to face an enemy who fights with such terrible kindness. Tejan felt something shift in the chamber. The galaxy was changing. The old rules, the old ways of thinking about power and warfare were being rewritten. An elderly Veltir entered the chamber then. Thesira the Younger, descendant of the elder who had saved humanity so long ago. She moved slowly, leaning on a staff, but her 4 eyes were bright and clear. May I speak? She asked. Of course, the Kelris leader said quickly. Thesira looked around at all the assembled species. My ancestors saved humanity when we had no reason to. We gave them life because we believed all life was sacred. We expected nothing in return. She paused, her voice growing stronger. Humanity has now repaid that debt 1,000 times over. They lost more people saving us than we saved of them. They fought an impossible battle because they believed it was right. Perhaps the question this council should ask is not why did humanity do this? But why didn't we? The words echoed in the massive chamber. Every representative felt the weight of them. You all stood here 6 months ago and told humanity the math didn't work. That 3,000 lives weren't worth the risk. But humanity proved you wrong. They showed that some things matter more than mathematics. They showed what civilization really means. Thesira turned to Tejan and Somin. My people owe humanity a debt we can never repay. But we will try. For as long as the Veltir exist, we will stand with humanity. We will remember what they did. We will tell our children and our children's children about the species that honored their promises. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. The Concordat Charter was rewritten with humanity's input. Real mutual defense obligations were established. Species couldn't just vote to abandon each other anymore. New alliances formed. Some species joined with humanity, attracted to their proven loyalty. Others feared them and kept their distance. But everyone understood now that humanity was not weak. Humanity was simply patient. The Drethani Empire opened trade with human worlds. They studied human tactics, trying to understand how such a small fleet had hurt them so badly. But more than tactics, they studied human psychology. They wanted to understand this strange species that fought for others instead of themselves. Jiwan, the archaeologist who had first found the Veltir distress signal, stood in Earth's Grand Archive. She looked at the ancient record made by Captain Deho 847 years ago. Next to it, she placed a new record. She typed carefully, making sure every word was perfect. Year 3023. The debt to the Veltir has been paid in full. Humanity sacrificed 180 ships and 90,000 lives to save 3,000 Veltir from certain death. The debt is honored. The promise is kept. She paused, then began a new entry. Year 3023. A new debt is recorded. The galaxy abandoned the Veltir when they needed help. Humanity proved that honor still matters, that promises still mean something. The galaxy now owes humanity a debt, payable when humanity needs the galaxy most. She saved the file and locked it into the permanent records, just as Deho had done so long ago. In a quiet room on the Velthir's new homeworld, the Sira the Younger sat with Admiral Soman. They looked out at a sunset over an alien ocean.